few weeks ago, a couple of months back perhaps, I posted a video whereby I talked about what it's like to be the other in London. This is like a follow-up video to that one. I'm just sort of wondering, is there something about living in London in comparison to living outside of a major metropolis that creates the other? Let's find out. Good day. Lovely to see you again. I'm Dr. Dwight Turner. This is Being the Other. And again, we're looking at aspects of otherness, what it is to be the other, how this otherness is formed, and experiences of being the other in a way. Now, like I said at the top of this program, a couple of months ago, I posted a video whereby we looked at what it's like to be the other in London, about how London, for example, as an example of a major metropolis, is actually really unfriendly. It's a very unfriendly place to be in. And actually, a lot of the time, when you live in a place like this, like I've traveled all around the world in major cities, people tend not to relate to each other, tend not to connect with each other. And I just wanted to compare that to actually other experiences of being around other parts of the country. For example, I don't live in London anymore. And one of the reasons for that is actually because it's so unfriendly. Many other reasons as well. It's very expensive and so on, and gentrification and stuff like that. But one of the reasons is it's actually very unfriendly. And where I actually live right now, I'm not going to say where because I'll keep that confidential, but where I live right now, one of the major things that's always stood out for me is the sheer simple fact that people will actually stop and actually say hello when you're walking down the street. It could be as simple as that. This idea that you're related to. In other videos, I've talked about how invisible the other can feel. When if you've seen as different in some way, then actually you're marginalized. And that still happens here, where I am right now. It still happens. People will actually just avoid any sort of gaze that I might give them if they're doing something wrong. There's a real felt sense that they don't want to see you there. It still happens. Doesn't go away totally. But there is, for me at least, a greater sense of people trying to connect with you. People at least saying the normal human things of good morning, whatever it might be, asking how you are, and so maybe sharing a joke in the morning or when you're out for a run, whatever that might be. That's a very different experience to if you're living in a major metropolis, I find. That sense of community, that sense of togetherness, when you're not living in a place like London, or when you're living in a smaller part of London where there is still communities, they still exist, that's very important to recognize. So there is something, in my simple experience, about living in a metropolis, living in a city, that creates a greater sense of distance and otherness. And this is where it becomes more problematic. Like in the past, I've talked about how being the other can also be psychologically quite damaging. It doesn't always have to be that way. It can be quite positive too. But sometimes when we're forced into that position of not being seen, not being acknowledged, being marginalized in some way, then we're causing the other psychological harm. And if we're living in a place like London, I've also been to Sao Paulo and other places around the world, where actually that sense of community is more fractured, where people have to travel further to get to where they have to work, where they have to be with their schools, with their kids and so on, then that sense of togetherness, that sense of being seen and witnessed and mirrored by those who we know, who are closest to us, who we have some sort of allegiance or connection with, disappears. So we're very much on our own. And it's a very difficult thing sometimes to live in a place where you feel like you're on your own and yet you're surrounded by hundreds, thousands, literally millions of people. It can be very, very painful. Now I just want to leave that one there for this week. Just a very brief one, just to talk about what this might mean. And what I'd like you to do, the people who watch these videos, to think about your own experiences. Being in a city, being outside of one, wherever it might be, whether you're on holiday or just traveling somewhere. And what do you experience? How do you experience being different when you're outside of a major metropolis? If you have any comments, then please do leave them down in the comment section below. I look forward to hearing from yourselves. As always, it's a pleasure to talk to you about aspects of otherness and so on. As always, I'm on Facebook, on Twitter as well. Follow us on both platforms if you wish to do so. I will look forward to seeing you again soon. My name is Dr. Dwight Turner. Take good care. Bye-bye.